You may be aware of the campaign to give 16-year-olds across the UK the right to vote. It's been endorsed by the Labour Party, among others, although it's opposed by the government, which argues the voting age should remain at 18. But one campaigner says he wants it to go even lower, although we suspect he may just be trying to make a point.
We're launching Votes at 12. Did you know that at age 12 you can have your ears pierced? You're legally allowed to buy a spoon, but you're not allowed to vote for your future. We think that's wrong. We think that that's a societal injustice on the level of women's suffrage and working class suffrage. We need to deliver children's suffrage. Sign up to our campaign to show your support and share this video to make sure the world can hear about our vital campaign, about our vital rectifying of injustice, about our vital movement and message.
And the man you saw there launching his campaign, which we assume is satirical, is Tom Harwood. He joins us now, as does Liam Preston from the YMCA, which is campaigning entirely sincerely, I think, for the voting age to be lowered to 16. So, is it a joke?
I think it raises a really important point. And that point is that a lot of the arguments about votes at 16, in fact, almost all of them, can actually be applied to 12-year-olds. You might say that 12-year-olds aren't allowed to buy alcohol, buy cigarettes, drive,
get married,
fight for their country, marry without permission, all of these things. But that's true of 16-year-olds as well. And really, when we look at the issue of lowering the franchise, we need to rest it on what we consider to be an adult in this country. And so lowering it to 16 would really raise a lot of difficult questions about what 16-year-olds' responsibilities and rights are.
Right, what do you say?
Well, it's a very good stunt. I think it's raised awareness of the actual issue that we do need to have votes at 16. I think the reality behind this issue is that young people at 16 and 17 are mature enough to vote, they're well educated enough to vote, they already engage in the types of issues that are debated at elections, and when they're given the opportunity, like in the Scottish referendum, they will come out and register and they will come out and vote. So I don't see why we're not lowering that to that franchise and giving them a chance to really have a say in their society.
Chris Skidmore?
Well, I think that it is a question of, what age do you become a citizen?
Right.
What is the franchise?
16 is the suggestion.
Well, I think you've also got to remember, at 16, people can already register to vote. They can't vote until 18. In Scotland, obviously, they can vote in local elections at 16, but they can start to register at 14. But this system may be registering at 10. And you've got to ask, to what extent is there a safe space for people to grow up without being sort of bombarded with political messages from politicians? And I think that when you look at the rest of the world, only 5 countries, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Argentina, Austria and Brazil, that actually have votes at 16. Most of them have 18.
Right, Lisa, Nandy.
I think, it's quite a clever stunt, but it sort of misses the point. We mature at different ages. You don't suddenly become an adult overnight. You can be held criminally responsible for your actions from the age of 10, and then we have a whole series of different things that you can do at different ages, going all the way up to 18 or 21 in some cases. And it seems to me that actually what we're arguing about is a question of where you strike the right balance. But for me, the question has always been, when we've extended the franchise, it's traditionally always been a good thing, and the question shouldn't be why do it, but why not? And in the case of 12-year-olds, I think there are some arguments why not. In the case of 16-year-olds, frankly, I can't see any. Right,
you're missing the point.
What would you say the arguments for not extending it to 12-year-olds are? Because I'd say that most of them could probably be applied to 16-year-olds. We heard just now that 16-year-olds have the right political knowledge and education, and that's true, but I don't think that we should be basing the franchise on whether people have knowledge and education. I think that's a terrible way to decide whether people should be allowed to vote or not.
Can the same arguments be applied to 12-year-olds as 16-year-olds?
No, I think when you're 12, you are in a very different place in life than when you're 15, 16, or 16 and 17. And actually, we're doing a disservice to organisations that work with 16 and 17-year-olds who know what it's like, who know how mature they are. And actually, they want to engage in society. They want to be able to shape democracy. And one of the biggest issues is that politicians don't engage with issues for young people. And at least this will give an opportunity for parties to look at themselves and say, what can we do for young people?
Do you think you're undermining, really, the campaign here being run?
Not at all. I think that if anything undermines the campaign, it's people who campaign for votes at 16-year-olds comparing themselves to the suffragettes or extending it to working class people.
Well, I mean,
the issues. You might not have done, but many campaigners have done, and I think that's what I'm trying to satirise really here, because there isn't the same systematic discrimination against the marginalised groups in the past against 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds today.
But they are more affected by the decisions, many of the decisions that we make or don't make. So climate change is a really good example. If we don't deal with climate change, that generation will be more affected than mine.
And 12-year-olds will be even more affected.
Sure,
so, and 6-year-olds even more affected.
But generally speaking, we don't accept that 12-year-olds operate independently. They do tend to still have to have somebody at home looking after them. They don't tend to go out very much by themselves. 16-year-olds are a completely different
place. And there's a legal
place.
concept, the age of majority, the age at which someone in this country becomes in charge of their own actions and not liable to someone else.
Right.
And that's 18.
Do you think that governments have
10 in the
ignored
case of
younger
criminal
voters because they don't have a say?
No, not at all. I think this is a sort of the very fact of arguing that somehow this is a transactional approach, that somehow if we don't give 16-year-olds the votes, politicians are going to ignore youth issues, completely misses the point.
But actually, what you've done to young people
when
in
it
the
comes
last
to
8
looking
years.
at sort of youth services, no, not at all, because actually when you look at sort of what we want to provide in the future, that's one of the key arguments we made for reducing the deficit, was making sure we didn't saddle next generations.
Next generation.
And we're going to have to leave it there. We'll have to do a whole programme on this. That's it for today. Thank you to you two for coming in, and thank you for being our guests of the day. The 1 o'clock news is starting over on BBC One now, and I'll be back tomorrow. It'll still be cold, probably. Bye.